You found us through fly fishing. You'll stay for our passion and the community. Welcome to the Wet Fly Swing podcast.
Yeah, but he doesn't get it. How come fly fishermen don't get it?
You only haul with the short power snap.
Look for where people walk and the insides of bends and hunt those.
The roof blew off and the interior walls got sucked out. And the trees are just coming up. And I mean, he's clearly not going to clear the trees.
It is not a fly fishing story. It's a story about me trying to understand my brother through fly fishing.
Welcome to the Wet Fly Swing Fly Fishing Show, where you discover tips, tricks, and tools from the leading names in fly fishing today.
Today's episode is brought to you by Northern Rockies Adventures, premium fly fishing trips in the heart of the BC Rockies. Premium all-inclusive fishing packages from Vancouver, BC. Daily fly-in fishing trips to get you straight to the action, and the lodges offer private cabins and the utmost comfort. Learn more about this exclusive BC fishing trip at nradventures.com/wetflyswing. We've been waiting for you. Follow our guests, follow us on Instagram, and share this episode and the love if you enjoy this podcast. And we are live in 3, 2, 1. How you doing, Lucas?
Good. How are you, Dave? Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on here today. I always love doing some episodes on AFFTA and some of the events you guys have going because I think it's an important part of the fly fishing industry. I think there's been a lot of changes. You know, we've obviously had COVID, the last few years, things like that. But I want to get a little background on AFFTA, the upcoming events you have going. But take us back into fishing. I want to start there real quick on how you got into fly fishing. What was your first memory in fly fishing?
Yeah, so, being from Louisiana, I have a little bit different experience than most in the sense that it wasn't something that I was born into. My parents moved to Missouri when I was about 10 years old, and when I was about 12, my grandmother gave me just like a Walmart fly fishing special. And, so I just, there was no YouTube or anything at the time, and so I just started to play around with it, started catching panfish and bass using it, and that really kind of struck a chord with me. Fishing has always been a big part of my life, and so that was kind of a natural, just fit in the sense that I really enjoyed fishing and that was challenging and something different, and so it intrigued me. And so I played around with it in my sort of adolescent, teen years, and then moved away to college and put it down for a while, and then really got back into it when I was about 24. And caught my first redfish on fly here in Louisiana. And the rest is absolute history from there. I went as far as becoming a guide for 11 years and, so enjoyed my time on the back of a skiff, taking people red fishing for 11 years.
Wow, that's so cool. Yeah, redfish is definitely one of those big species that's out there. What does that look like in where you're fishing, maybe originally or just in Louisiana? Are there, if somebody wanted to do that trip, is that something somebody can DIY pretty good, or do you have to have kind of a guide, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, Louisiana is an intricate maze of all things marsh, and so DIY is not really possible just because there's no wading opportunity. There's not really a great, sort of bank fishery. And so having a boat, having the knowledge to get around safely is something that is pretty difficult unless you're experienced. And so, folks come down with their skiffs and fish from other places, but it's definitely a lot easier. And you shorten the learning curve significantly if you take out, with a guide.
Yeah. How do you do it? Since you work for AFFTA and you represent, or you're working with all these different brands. If somebody said, "Hey, who would you recommend we go with to look at a lodge or a guide down for redfish?" Do you answer that question, or do you say, "Hey, I can't really answer because I kind of support everybody"?
Yeah, I mean, I do my best to be unbiased, but I also was an Orvis-Endorsed guide for 8 years and was the Orvis-Endorsed Guide of the Year in 2017. Wow. So, for me, it was an easy choice in those days, obviously. But, now I try to tell people to, do your research and, ask friends for sure, because, word of mouth is definitely the best way to figure out who is doing what and where. And, when it comes to a guide or anything, it's really about personal choice, and, personalities are going to be different and people are going to get along better. So that's one of the things that, and I'm giving you like the most politician-y answer ever, but I will say that research prior to a trip is probably the least utilized
Oh, right.
sort of, benefit that we have in the world of guiding and lodges. And, asking the right questions is really important. And so I encourage people to call and talk, and, anybody who's worth their weight in salt will give you the time to answer those questions and make you feel comfortable, because it is a big decision. You're spending a lot of money. So, same thing with gear.
Yeah, same thing, exactly. So what would be if you were, and we're starting to do, trying to build our travel program a little bit with listeners of the podcast, and, and that's been going pretty well, but there's lots of questions. So what would be the questions you're planning? You got this trip coming up. What are the few questions you need to ask your guide, your lodge, before you get there?
Yeah, I mean, one is discuss skill level, where you're at as an angler, what you're hoping to achieve, and if that's realistic or not. I mean, that's the biggest question. Is expectations are really something you can control before a trip, and so understanding, what you can expect in the fishery, what is your skill level determine how well you're going to do, and what can you practice before you come. I mean, those are really important components. And then also understanding what a day of fishing looks like. Am I on a boat? Am I waiting? Am I, what do I need to be prepared for? Is it 100 degrees? Is it cold? Is it going to rain? And so understanding what gear you need to have beyond just the rod and reel, and then understanding what you can expect from your skill level and how you can improve before you get there. I mean, I think those are the most important things to ask.
Amazing. Those are awesome. I'm glad we dug into this here. So, yeah, obviously, Lucas, you're a wealth of knowledge here. This is already starting off great. And so I want to, I can't leave the guide of the year. That's pretty amazing. I think that I could get you on a spot just by doing that. So you were the guide of the year in 2017. Were you working for a lodge, or was this just on your own?
No, I was an independent guide.
Oh, wow.
From day one. I had my own business here in Louisiana, and it was something that I set out to do when I became Orvis-Endorsed. It was important to me. And so, I really tried to make sure that I was a pillar in the community. I have a nonprofit here in Louisiana that I started that does coastal restoration work with kids from the community.
Mm.
And on top of that, I made sure that everybody left a review. And so the year that I won, I had 131 5-star reviews, I think, or something. So
gotcha. We've heard that before from some Orvis-Endorsed lodges that have been on, where like that's part of it. You got to be proactive. You can't just sit back and expect people are gonna do all this, leave reviews, right? You got to actually take some action there to become.
Yeah. I mean, and it's important because again, when people are looking for a guide or looking for a lodge, they're really going to have to look through those reviews in order to make a decision. And that's really people's first touch point. So, as a business owner or, someone who's part of an outfitter service, that it's important that your name is out there in that capacity, because that's really the first impression that a lot of people get, and it's what they trust. And so encouraging people who had a good time to give an honest review is probably the most important thing you can do as a business owner right now, because that's what people utilize to make every decision that they make.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing about it a little bit too, right? Is that sometimes you might even have maybe some people that aren't satisfied for whatever reason. Maybe they're they're just all sorts of things. But you could get a 1-star review, right? Like, what is that when you think of the different? How would a business deal with that? Let's say, and it could be just a fake review too, that sort of thing. What's your advice there if somebody gets a bad review on there?
Well, I mean, typically, if you're in contact with the person during the day and you kind of get a feel for how their day went or the experience they had, you would hope that you understand that that's a possibility. And so I would say that you'd want to have a conversation up front after the trip before that review happens, in order to, sort of understand and potentially satiate the issues that they had. If not, then, I would definitely encourage someone to contact that person after the fact, try to discuss with them what the reasons were, and if they're comfortable with you, kind of putting up a bit of a rebuttal to that specific review. Because, sometimes people, again, and a lot of this can be managed prior to,
Yep.
People come in with unrealistic expectations,
Right.
or there was some miscommunication there. And look, sometimes things happen. I mean,
Sure.
After 11 years of guiding, I had a couple of trips that were real whoppers. I mean, but But, you do what you can in order to try and make sure that people are happy. And sometimes it doesn't work. And, I think this is important too when you talk about reviews is that, statistically, you always throw out the outliers, right?
Yeah,
So
that's
if
right.
you get someone who's like your cousin who wrote the
Right.
most glowing review ever,
Yeah.
or you get someone who, just has got a grudge, then as someone who's utilizing those reviews to make a decision, I would throw those out.
Yeah.
And, look at what the majority of those reviews are. Now, if the majority are ones, well,
Right.
then,
Not good.
then you, maybe not. But, and having dealt with people, reviewing or critiquing your work for as long as I did, you also realize that some people are just that way.
Yeah.
They're angry. They just want to
Right.
be mean or, want to be hurtful. And so you're going to have that. Yeah. I was lucky to never have anything like that. I did have a fake review one time of someone who, put up a review, and then Orvis actually tried to contact them and they never responded. And so after the 30-day waiting period, they took it down. But yeah, so anyway, if you have Google and others that, you can understand kind of a process that you could go through to dispute or, kind of rebuke some of those things. But anyway, talked a lot about reviews.
Okay, cool. So on the reviews, so that's a good tip. And I always go to my my 3-star tip, where you this could be Amazon or wherever you're buying on, it doesn't matter. But look at the 3-star reviews over the 1-star, right? Because those are the ones that actually people took time, and they're probably more in the middle sort of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, yeah. But yeah, good. Well, let's hear about AFFTA, because I think this is, an event that is really important. I've been to it. I've made some of my best connections at AFFTA, and I want to hear. And I know there's been some changes over the years from what you have going. So maybe first, for people that haven't heard the episodes we've done in the past, maybe give a quick little primer on what AFFTA is and what some of your events are that are coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we are the American Fly Fishing Trade Association. That's what AFFTA stands for. We're the sole trade association in fly fishing. We represent the entire industry of fly fishing. So manufacturers, retailers, guides, outfitters, media, the whole gamut. And, as a trade association, our lead goal is to, really try to help guide the sustainable growth of the industry of fly fishing. So we're in the business of fly fishing. And so as a trade association, we really try and build a community and representation on Capitol Hill. So if there's any legislation that's happening, we try to advocate for fly fishing in that capacity, and anything that seems to be, kind of harming fly fishing, we're out there trying to keep an eye on it and see if there's anything we can do to overturn it. And, it's important to us to have that representation and make sure that people feel like their trade association is working for them. And so part of that, kind of job that we do is putting on events that bring the industry together in like a business to business fashion. So, we're doing something that's not open to the public, typically is going to revolve around business or education. And, like you said, COVID has really thrown us some curveballs, but we're, forever trying to adapt to those curveballs and make sure that we're putting on something that resonates with our members. And so, in the past, we've done IFTD, which was the International Fly Tackle Dealer Show. This year, that has changed to Confluence. It's a very similar show, but we have made some pretty dramatic changes to it. That'll be September 26th through the 28th of this year, so only a few weeks away. But we have added an outdoor day to that event so that we can get outside, stretch our legs, get a little sunshine. We're there in Salt Lake City at the Salt Palace for 2 days, and then outside in Pioneer Park for 1. And again, it still revolves around, that business to business interaction. We're going to have some pretty interesting education this year for retailers, because we have partnered with a data collection company that's going to be getting us some real-time and far more accurate census data. So basically what it does is it connects to retailers' point of sale systems. It collects data, it aggregates that data, and it puts it back out for us in a report that we're going to produce twice a year. So it's going to replace our dealer survey reports that we've done in the past. And so we're unveiling that report for the first time at Confluence in a couple weeks. And then we're going to educate retailers around the information that comes out, as well as a real-time dashboard that they'll get in their store and they can use to make decisions with comparative analysis. So they're actually going to get comparisons to their store to the rest of the country. And so if things are happening outside of their doors that they weren't aware about before, they can now make decisions seeing what those things are across the country.
Oh, wow. And on that report, follow up on that a little bit. So that basically, describe that again. So what would somebody get? What would a potential fly fishing brand get out of that report that's going to be there?
Yeah, so that report will be available for free for members of AFFTA. And basically what it does is it looks at market trends. It looks at, again, comparative analytics. So if you have market share within the industry, so let's say you're looking at reels. So what brands have what market share of the reel market in fly fishing?
Oh, wow.
Or rods or anything like that. And so AFFTA in the past has produced a report that was based off of a dealer survey. So we would send out questions, and through Southwick and Associates, we'd create this report. Well, it was only as accurate as the people who would fill out the report, and only really as accurate as their gut feeling. And a lot of times, that would be, well, I sold a bunch of rods recently, so that's the one that I sell the most, but this is census data. So there is no gut feeling. It's pulling directly from their point of sale system. And so it's extremely accurate in that there's no human error. I mean, it is what you've sold. And so it just becomes a far more reliable report and something that people can make decisions off of. And I know from my experience with our members, especially the manufacturing members, when it comes to this report, this is going to be invaluable. It's something that, they've always really wanted to see, but no one's ever really produced it. This is the first of its kind. And then, like I said, it's important too to note that we're doing something for the retailers at the same time, because this dashboard that they're going to get access to in their store is going to take what used to only be information for their store and then give them back information that's happening in other stores around the country, but anonymously. So nobody knows whose information is whose, because it's all pulled together into an aggregate. But yeah, this is some really exciting stuff. I mean, we're at the precipice of doing something for this industry that's never been done. In fact, many verticals would love to have this kind of information. And we're lucky enough to have partnered with a company called TrackFly, who's doing it for the first time ever with fly fishing. And so we as AFFTA are paying for that endeavor. Mm-hmm. And so it's free to our members in a lot of cases.
Wow, I love this. Yeah, I love this for a lot of reasons. I mean, like you said, I mean, I think of an example is, you got a fly shop, and I mean, maybe let's take that, two examples. You got a fly shop, for example, and then you've got the company that makes the reel. So they could literally go in and say, okay, here's our estimated, or here's our market share of and they could say, okay, we got 10% of the market. Now we know what we have to do to change things, or what would be the what do they get out of this, and then how do they use that data?
Yeah, exactly what you're saying. I mean, it's looking at what they have as far as that market share goes, and then trying to decide, based on marketing or based on, what they can do to try and pull some of that share in their direction. So if they know that they have X amount of the market, well, then now I know that I have this much I can go out and try to get. And so it gives them a competitive advantage to try and
do more.
Yeah, and do more.
And see how well you're doing. I mean, if this comes out every year, now you're like, okay, year two, now we got a little more, or we're going down. You can actually see the trend.
Exactly. And that's really the important part of reports like these is really analysis over time.
Yeah.
And so that's, while you have a snapshot for this year, because it's our first year, that's important.
Yeah.
But really looking at those trends over time are the real metrics that people are waiting to see. And, at the same time, we're hoping to be able to really kind of define how big the fly fishing industry is, because that's been a guess from day one. There hasn't really been a great way of measuring what the size of this industry is, because so much of what is done to even look at fishing is based on license sales. And the reality is that there is no distinction between fly fishing licenses and regular fishing licenses. Yeah. So even understanding what the universe of this industry has never been done in a truly analytical way. And so for us to be able to provide something like that over time is really important for us as AFFTA, because these are the types of things that a trade association goes out and tries to get so that you as a member, can, like I said, have a competitive advantage. And so this is a big deal. I mean, it's the biggest thing I think that will have come out of the fly fishing industry potentially ever. I mean, I don't like to be hyperbolic, right. But I mean,
right.
I think it's a big deal. I mean, it's something that we could really see as a game changer in how people make decisions for their business.
I love this. Yeah, this is great. I love that we're able to announce this because I wasn't aware of this. And so if you take this too, because I always think of, we've got obviously in our listeners people that are in the industry, definitely, part of that. And I'm not even sure what percentage, is right now. It's a survey. That's some data I should be getting more, but I know it's a good chunk. But there's also people that are just, they're just consumers, fly anglers. Like, how does maybe this data and just AFFTA in general help the actual person who's just the person that wants to go fishing?
Yeah, I think it's an important distinction to make that, as a trade association, we obviously deal in the business of fly fishing. But as we make our members and the industry in general stronger, it means that there's an opportunity for the industry to continue on and for the sport to grow. I mean, at the backbone of all of this is the businesses who sell, who manufacture, who guide, and so making sure that those businesses are strong and adaptive and can, continually be nimble enough to make the changes that are necessary as our economy, as our ecology, all of it changes, is really the important component for the consumer, because a resilient and strong business means that we'll have a resilient and strong industry, and a resilient and strong industry means an industry that supports the sport. And so, we do it from the top down, but it is as important for the consumer as it is for the business.
Perfect. That's awesome. And so maybe let's go into the confluence, the changes. So that you used to have the kind of the IFTD. Talk about, there's been some changes in timing. There's been some changes in different things. Describe how it's different maybe from the old IFTD when it was, I think, was it in Denver last?
Denver last, yeah. So we had it in 2019 in Denver. That was our, sort of our largest show reported. That was the last one pre-COVID. We did have an IFTD last year in March in Salt Lake City. That one was smaller just in comparison, but we were also in the middle of between Delta and Omicron variants of COVID. And so that definitely was something that we had to thread the needle on. And, it was one of those deals where we were still rolling over deposits from 2 years prior, and, just a lot of stuff going on. So I told people, like, we had to have that show. Like, it wasn't about if we wanted to or not. It was like we had to have it in order to get those deposits off the books and really start from a fresh slate. And that was why, the name change and really kind of the change in the show made sense, because we were, kind of ushering out the IFTD days and moving into something fresh and new. And so, yeah, the timing component of it has always been, a topic for debate, and it will always be a topic for debate. I mean, kind of giving a very brief history, an IFTD or any other trade show for that matter really used to dictate when product was released. And so dealers, retailers would go to those shows to write orders and see the product for the first time. Well, as product release changes and soft goods versus hard goods, all that stuff changed. And so the show then, it was like trying to figure out what that perfect timing was, but everybody was releasing product at a different time. So there was no perfect time. And so, we look at a pivotal shift in the show going from IFTD to Confluence and saying, okay, we understand that bringing the industry together is important. And we all agree that we need to try and talk to each other, especially post-COVID, as we all got really kind of separated from each other and isolated. And so having these sort of large, sort of industry-wide conversations is important. And AFFTA is the only organization that can bring people together in that capacity. And so we knew that that was the important part. And so that was the premise that we worked off of. And then, some people still want to show product. And so we wanted to make sure that there was a product component, which there is, but also that, education becomes extremely important. And especially, again, post-COVID, the world is changing around us. And so anything we can do to help people, be ready for those changes is something that we are really supposed to do. And so we have incorporated a lot more education into Confluence this year. All of it, really for the dealers surrounding this great information that's coming out from TrackFly. And so this is an opportunity for them to get really thousands of dollars worth of education and consulting for free. All they have to do is come to the show. And so, that's a huge pivot that we've made. And it's like almost taking an industry summit like we did last year in Charleston and putting it together with, a trade event. And so a lot more focus on education. We're actually opening the show a little bit later both days in order to allow manufacturers to be part of that conversation. So in the past, manufacturers would go to their booth and then they would be stuck in their booth for the whole time. And so they didn't really get to be part of the conversation in that capacity. So we're opening the show an hour later, letting them be a part of these roundtable discussions that we'll have. And then we're going to go outside the last day. And, we're also changed the cadence of the show. So it used to be a Thursday, Friday, or Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I think it was. And so this year it's a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, so that retailers can get back to their shops for the weekend. And then, like I said, that outdoor day is a huge shift because it's going to allow, again, manufacturers to come out from behind the booth. It's going to give them an opportunity to be a part of the bigger conversation. I like to say business can happen anywhere. And so, just because they're outside doesn't mean that the business part of it has to slow down. It just means that, you can do it over a cold drink. So, we're really trying to get out from under the sterility of the fluorescent lights of a trade show and that convention center and let that natural vitamin D rain down on us and hopefully enhance the experience.
Nice. And so that outdoor component, so what will that be? Just kind of mingling and chatting, or will there be events? Yeah,
we're going to have food trucks there that are going to serve food. We're going to have Paul Puckett from over there in South Carolina playing. We're going to have casting games put on by Farbank. And so there's going to be like a whole outdoor fun, casting thing. Simon Gosworth is going to host that. And then there's going to be some small tents that are available if we want to do some demos and stuff. So there will be an opportunity for folks to have a little bit of product out there if they wanted to demo it. And, so it's sort of a hybridized, kind of version, but it's basically, I like to think of it as like a 6-hour happy hour, basically, but, still conducting some business and doing some fun stuff.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's kind of, and that's it. I mean, I'm thinking of when you're saying it, I'm thinking of like you hear about some of those, the spay claves around or whatever fishing events where you can go meet
exactly.
up. Yeah, it kind of feels like that. And this is going to be kind of outside that area, just kind of right outside. I'm trying to think that convention area that's at the Salt, or no, where is it located? What?
Yeah, the Salt Palace in
Salt
Salt Lake
Palace.
City.
Yeah.
So there's 2 parks there close to the Salt Palace. We're going to be in Pioneer Park, which is a really long kind of football field shaped green space. It's about a 6-minute walk from the Salt Palace.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and I think, these events, I always think of them as, just the relationships. You can't beat the in-person. We have, with all the Zoom and all that stuff, it all works. But when you're actually face-to-face and you hang out with somebody, and have a drink with them, like you just build a lasting, right, lifetime thing. And then that's where a lot of this business stuff comes from. Do you guys see that? Is that still the number one thing with everything you have going? Obviously, you have this data, which sounds amazing. But is it still the networking, which is what really this is all about? Because it is challenging. Like the timing, it's always like, okay, when do you do it, right? Like you said, September, March, there's never going to be a good time to do this, right? Like, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, the timing aspect of it is always going to be a debate. But yeah, it's, networking is definitely one of the major components. I think education and really networking in a different way too, though. I think it's important to note that we are doing, networking a little differently. In the past, networking literally just meant, sitting down one-on-one with a retailer or, a buyer from a fly shop and having a conversation. Networking now, we're trying to make it more industry-wide and at the same time with each other. And so, it's addressing these sort of existential crises that are happening around supply chain issues, around, climate change, around all the things that are really impacting our industry, and trying to come together to come up with, everybody's input on, like industry-wide solutions. And so it's networking in the sense that, yes, that is the most important component to these shows, but it's doing it in a way that's far more collaborative. And that's something, again, that we believe AFFTA can provide, that sort of, third-party neutral space to have these conversations in a way that really opens people up to hopefully a much more productive conversation and can really, maybe mend some fences that has, been a little bit busted up over the last couple of years around, the isolation that happened due to COVID. And, so that's what we're hoping. We're hoping that we can bring people out to a spot that, makes them feel comfortable. We can have these big conversations. We can come up with some solutions and then give AFFTA something to work on for the next year. Because that's the thing too, is that we work for the industry. And so listening to our members and getting input from them is as important for us as it is for everybody else.
Today's episode is sponsored by Chota Outdoor, legendary comfort and equipment you can trust. Chota insists on the finest material and craftsmanship to assure you have the highest standards of quality. You'll feel in control of the elements in your Chota gear. Every product is solidly backed with a no-nonsense warranty against defects. And I have a family connection to Chota over the years. Back in the shop, the old shop, my dad carried Chota, and he wore those proudly with confidence. And now I'm carrying on that tradition, supporting Chota, and I'm very excited about the new products coming out this year and working with Chota in 2023. I'm pretty rough on my gear and find myself putting a lot of miles on that gear and being pretty rough on it. So it's good to know that the Chota gear is durable, is bomber, and I don't have to worry about it. And even on those long trips, and if you have a blowout, it's not going to be a good situation. So I'm excited to keep digging into this year. Clean, comfortable, charismatic, and ready for any situation you can throw at it. You can head over right now to Chota Outdoor at wetflyswing.com/Chota. That's CHOTA to support this podcast and a great family company right now. Okay, now back to the show. Right on. Right. And what is if you just look overall, kind of big picture, you've seen all this data, like if somebody said, hey, what is the state of the industry, right? Almost like the State of the Union, what is like fly fishing? How are we doing right now? I mean, obviously we've said it, the big COVID thing, all these changes, things are changing a lot. I mean, I talk to a lot of people who have small companies, big, medium, everything, but what do you feel is the current state?
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely seeing a bit of a downturn as far as, how quickly we dropped from like summertime into just, sort of getting into that fall time lull. The numbers sort of, suss that out. But what we are seeing is that the high that happened during the summer was higher than it was last year, or 21, sorry. So, there was a bit of a peak that happened that was a bit higher than 21, which was surprising. But, it's also very regional in how it looks. I mean, some people are feeling the heat and other people are feeling like they're doing about it the same or maybe even a little better. And so, it's really unfortunate that I can't give you some insightful number that says this is where we are. But, I think people are definitely feeling a little bit of the squeeze. Like I said, consumers have slowed down because of, just the uncertainty that's happening within the economy.
Yeah.
I think that's starting to improve, just because I pay attention to the economy and politics probably more than the average person now. And so, looking at what's happening with job growth and manufacturing in this country, we're starting to see things come back in a meaningful way. Inflation's down to 3%. I mean, there's a lot of things that are starting to kind of trend in the right direction. Fly fishing obviously is a bit more of a, like any other sport, it's going to be something that maybe the last thing to, for people to start spending money on again. But I think there's still definitely some consumers who are out there buying. I mean, the good thing is that typically affluent folks, don't necessarily slow down the same way that everyone else does. And so there's an opportunity for us to keep moving in the right direction. I don't think that it's doom and gloom by any means. I think that, it's just a matter, again, of us coming together to have the conversations in order to figure out how we can adapt to these changes, and having some form of, data that tells us, kind of more about what this is and less about what we think it is, will hopefully make, these decisions a bit easier to make. And so, that's what we can do, and that's what we're here for.
Yeah, I love it. No, I love the data. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, the joke around, about just in politics and stuff, like making decisions without data. I mean, that's the cool thing, is you guys actually have data, and that's going to help you make better decisions, make all of us make better decisions. And so,
and the data is going to get better and better as we go too. That's the thing, is that the more you have, the better information you're getting. And right now we already have about almost 20% of the market based on retailers. And so, your average sort of report that is generated as far as like a vertical goes, you're looking at 3 to 5%. And then they just extrapolate the rest of the data. So they basically pull from 3 to 5% of the total market. They say, okay, this is a big enough number to make a statistical decision, and so then they just extrapolate. Well, we already are close to 20%, which means we're already making more accurate decisions than any other vertical at this point, because we already have a larger share of the actual data that's to be collected, which means that we can make that much more accurate decisions. So that's the exciting part too, is that we actually have some really good participation, and that success is going to beget success. So the more people who see this information and realize how important it is, the more people who will participate. And so then we're just going to get even more accurate as we go.
Nice. Okay. And so people, that are listening right now, if they wanted to go get a hold of this report, they can basically just go to, how do they do that? Do they sign up, or what's that look like?
Yeah, so right now the report is not available until after Confluence. We're holding on to it to debut at Confluence. Once it is available on our website, it will be behind our member paywall. So you would need to be a member of AFFTA, and that can look different for each category. But yeah, you would just go to affta.org, AFFTA.org. You could then sign up for a membership based on your category, and then you would have access to that for free. Otherwise, there will be a nominal charge for anyone who doesn't want to be a member, but it will be far more significant than a membership. So, anyone who does want it can have access to it, but it is something that we will ask to pay for because it is so important.
Yeah, gotcha. No, it makes sense. I love it. And then, are you guys still at the event? Are you still going to have like the people choose like the winners of new products in that category?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, we'll still have the new product showcase. We did do a couple tweaks to that as well. Eliminated some categories, added a few categories here and there. Kenneth Andres, our show director, is in charge of the new product showcase. But yep, it'll still be there. We'll have people voting like we have in the past. That information will come out via press release after the show, and so we'll do a new product showcase. And as we continue to change this moving forward, I think something like the new product showcase will probably always be involved, no matter how we kind of adapt and change these shows. Just because I think it is a fun and important, component to the show. It may be the only way that we do product moving forward. We'll see how it works out. But I do think that the new product showcase is an important component to it. And so we'll see how that works moving forward. But, everything at this point is up for debate, and we're continuing to adapt on how we bring people together and what we see as successful, and so we're also going to be producing some surveys after this show to really try to figure out what the industry wants in a gathering.
Yeah, it's exciting. No, it's exciting. I think that it sounds challenging too, because what you're trying to do, bring together everybody, and you got these changing with COVID and everything. But yeah, what do you think is going to be the hardest thing about having a successful and what will be success for you guys this year at the event?
This year, I think it's going to be a much smaller show. It's going to be far less attended than in the past, but everything really kind of dictates whether people are going to get out of their shops or out of their manufacturing plants, because the reality is that the economy does have a bit of a crunch time happening. And so, marketing dollars are being put in other places. And so there are going to be some folks who have to make the hard decision not to come this year. And so we're expecting a smaller turnout. I mean, we're not going to be unrealistic in our expectations. And so for us, success is, just putting together something that is meaningful. We're going to try our best to educate as many people as possible who show up. I think that the exciting components are going to be there. It's just how many people are going to be there to experience it is really the bottom line. And so, success for us is just putting something on that's safe and exciting, and coming away with some lessons learned on how we can move forward, having some big conversations as an industry, talking about policy priorities that we want to focus on as AFFTA is another component. We have our political consultant coming this year. He's going to host a roundtable with the industry. We're going to talk about, what we want to see as kind of our policy priorities, and then we'll take that back as AFFTA and we'll start to focus on those. So, for us, success is getting information, it's giving information, it's educating, it's networking, and it's having a good time. And so we'll see what that looks like when it all shakes out. But either way, we're going to continue to adapt. We're going to continue to build something better, and we're going to utilize information coming from our members to do it.
Love it. And talk about the Fisheries Fund a little bit. We've been, we always try to hit on conservation. Is that still a high priority for you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, moving to the, Fisheries Fund and giving them a bigger role in sort of what AFFTA's conservation focus looks like it was an important step that we took a couple years ago. We brought in an executive director for that fund. We have that person, Whitney Tilt is his name. He's overseeing everything that happens from a conservation perspective for AFFTA. So it means that, as AFFTA, we still have two main pillars that we want to focus on. It's trade and it's stewardship. And so I, as the executive director of AFFTA, get to focus on all the trade and make sure that everyone's, business is operating efficiently. And then the Fisheries Fund really focuses on that conservation component. And this year we have another exciting, sort of opportunity coming out at Confluence with the Fisheries Fund as we're developing a sort of an angler's guide, kind of moving into the future and sort of noting the existential crisis that is climate change, and talking about ways that anglers can get involved in protecting our fisheries and making sure that our fisheries management regimes are really ready for, incorporating climate into how they manage our fisheries. And so, climate resilience is important for us, and knowing that our fisheries are experiencing issues all over and that we're seeing more extreme events one way or the other. And so the Fisheries Fund is doing a great job of putting together really a blueprint that's going to help anglers, continue to be a part of how we protect and conserve moving into the future. I mean, anglers have always been, sort of at the forefront of that kind of mindset. And so helping to educate them and giving them power in order to, get involved and really be a part of the solution is something that we want to do. And so the Fisheries Fund is spearheading that. And we're excited to see that released at Confluence as well.
Amazing. Yeah. So, and then the way that works is the funds come in, you guys actually promote or support other fisheries restoration, or is it more like education or a mix of everything?
No, it's there's like two components to the Fisheries Fund. So we have the small grants program, which is what you're talking about, where we actually get money, and then we select. This year we gave out around $30,000 to I can't remember, it was 8 or 9 different programs, and those are typically smaller fund, sort of in the $2,000 to $5,000 range, and we try to be a part of something that helps to improve fisheries around the country. And then at the same time, we also do the education component through some of our other work, this blueprint that we're talking about, and in many other ways, where they're going to host some conservation conversations at Confluence. And then we have a number of different campaigns that we're working on that you could go to, AFFTAFisheriesFund.org and check out. They're really the nonprofit part of what we're doing. And so there's philanthropy, there's education, there's all of that that's happening over there around conservation. And I mean, we're a nonprofit too, but we're a trade association, so it's a little bit different.
Gotcha. No, this is great. And so you think, I think you've highlighted a number of what you're expecting that will be highlights. Anything else you want to give a shout out to at the upcoming Confluence? And then will there be another event too after this event, like another IFTD, or will it be just Confluence once a year?
Yeah, so we haven't really decided what that looks like in 24 yet. We're still working on it. We had a board meeting the other day, and so that's a big topic of conversation. Stay tuned. Really soon we'll have information coming out about what that looks like. No, I think that, we're, like I said, we're excited for September 26th through 28th and bringing everyone together in a meaningful way, having a much larger focus on education and the excitement of this report and what TrackFly is producing. We're going to have some giveaways while we're there for those who sign up, pre-register for the event. And, we're actually giving away discounts on membership as well for retailers. So, if you're a retailer and you haven't signed up, if this does come out before the show, it is an opportunity to get registered and save some money on your membership, as well as your free data and things that we give as AFFTA. But yeah, no, we're excited for Confluence 23. It's going to be a bit different. It's going to be exciting in its own way, and we're going to use it as a learning experience to move into the future. And like I said, stay tuned, because we're definitely making some major changes, not only to our events, but to the industry's trade association as well. I mean, we're going to focus heavily on what we're doing for our members and make sure that everyone understands the collective power that comes from having a trade association represent an industry like fly fishing.
Today's episode is sponsored by Jackson Hole Fly Company. They've been designing and manufacturing fly fishing equipment and flies since 1978 in their home base in Wyoming. In 2020, they launched jhflyco.com and started selling gear directly online to anglers all over the country. You can go ahead and right now check out their huge selection of rods, reels, fly lines, tools, accessory. And right now, if you go to jhflyco.com/swing, you can get 25% off your first order. Just like Amazon, they'll ship everything directly to your door, saving you time and money. But unlike Amazon, you'll be supporting a great fly shop and this podcast by simply grabbing a few products, maybe just a couple of flies. Check it out. There we go. Get free shipping right now. All orders over $50 and get that 25% off your first order. jhflyco.com/swing. Okay, back to the show.
We're going to take it out of here in a little bit, but you mentioned a little bit on coastal restoration, some of the work. I want to touch on that, but maybe just talk about your fishing. Like, what now? Are you still? Do you get out? Are you into a little bit of everything, or what's your focus now? Is it still redfish?
No, I do try to get out as much as I can. It still is my sanity and an important part of my life for sure. I grew up fishing conventional as well, so I do some of that. Don't tell anybody, but I still do some offshore fishing. That's something that I've been into lately, and I'll drag a fly rod with me from time to time. But I've been doing a lot of bottom fishing right now, just because that's what's kind of in season here in Louisiana. But yeah, I try to get to different places when I can. One of the benefits of this job is I do get to travel around the country, and so I try to get out and do a little bit of fishing. I also try to get home to the family as quick as possible. But
right,
so I love the cold stream stuff. I love any sort of ocean fishing that I can be a part of. So yeah, I try to get out as much as I can, just because it is an important part of my life. And I do live here right on Lake Pontchartrain, which is a humongous body of water here in Louisiana. And so it does make it easy for me to slip out for a few hours here and there. But yeah, fishing is still a major part of my life for sure.
Perfect. Yeah, and we got about half of our audience also conventional fishes. We do a lot of survey data when we can too, and we know that that's a huge part. So I think it's pretty awesome. I guess as we take it out of here, let's go back to that guide of the year really quick, because I think that's a pretty cool highlight. I don't want to leave that one. So did we cover everything? Somebody wants to up their guide game, because I think the guiding is it depends around the country, right? Like sometimes it's easier to get into it, but to be a good guide, what do you think it takes to be a really because I've seen this before. I feel like some people are just meant to be guides. But what's your take on it? Do you have a tip for somebody who really wants to? Yeah.
Let me preface this with it's my opinion,
right?
But it's Lucas's opinion, not AFFTA's opinion,
right?
But it's to me, it's about being a people person. I mean, the reality is that a good angler doesn't mean you're a good guide necessarily. Just because you can catch fish doesn't mean you can help others catch fish. I think it's important to understand that when you're a guide, you're going to be a therapist, you're going to be a photographer, you're going to be a bartender, you're going to be all these things, a confidant, a friend. I mean, I made lasting relationships with folks on the boat. And so, the reality of being a good guide is two things. One, a good guide is a person who can make someone happy without catching fish. I think that's extremely important. I mean, anyone can be a good guide when the fishing is good, but a great guide is somebody who, has everyone smiling even whenever no one caught anything. And I think the other thing too is just to remember not to put your expectations on someone else's trip. I think, people experience things differently. And if someone catches a fish and they're excited, let them be excited. Don't be upset because you wish they'd have caught 10 fish instead of one. The reality is that it's their trip. It's their day. They're paying you to guide them, not to tell them what it is that they should expect. I mean, yes, you want to do that prior to, but once the day has happened, if someone's happy, let them be happy. And so that to me is a big part of it. I see a lot of folks who get upset because, maybe it didn't go the way they thought as a guide, or maybe they didn't get as many photos for Instagram as they wanted. But the reality is that this is that person's day. And if they're excited, you're excited, and don't rain on their parade. So, be a people person, always be nice to people, treat them like you want to be treated. I think it's important to have, different speeds depending on who you're fishing with. For me, I always tried to tailor make that day for that person. If they're, having a great time with just some fun, light banter, then you fun, light banter. If they don't talk, you don't have to talk. If they want to be quiet, you be quiet.
Yeah.
If they want to get rowdy, you get rowdy. That's the beauty of it, is that you're going to meet different people with different personalities every day. So if you're not a people person, don't be a guide.
Right.
Because you're stuck on a boat or on shore with them for 8 hours. So, if you're not willing to have a good time with anyone and can't meet a stranger and have a good time, then you are not going to enjoy guiding. I mean, that is the matter of the fact of it. So people first and fish second, and just make sure you treat people like you want to be treated. And if you notice that they're enjoying themselves, keep doing that. If you notice that they're shutting down and not having a good time, adjust what you're doing.
Yeah, good. No, that's perfect. And so, yeah, we're not quite sure in this episode, but if it goes out, drops, say, November or October after this Confluence event. So looking ahead, we don't quite know what's going on, but you do know there will be another event next year, probably Confluence, right? I mean, the chances that that's going to continue going, is that the case, or do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, there will definitely be something in 24. It may be a bit smaller than Confluence. We haven't decided yet. It could be more of like an industry summit. But we will do something in 24. There will be something that brings the industry together in some capacity. It may be smaller in venue. It may be in a different place of the country. So, just stay tuned for that. Like I said, we're in the midst of making those decisions now. The show committee is doing a great job of really looking at all of our options and seeing what we'd like to do for 24. 25 will definitely have sort of a ramping back up into something. We just need to make those decisions. And a lot of it depends on the surveys that we send out and really kind of learning what the people of this industry want to do.
Perfect. And describe just the summit a little bit. What is a summit? What is the summit versus, say, doing another type of event?
Yeah. So I think that there's an important distinction there. So thanks for asking. A summit is really more based on education. A lot of it has to do with like collaboration between the industry partners and looking at, differing education tracks for different categories. So we put on an industry summit in Charleston, South Carolina last year in October. And basically what we did is it was 3 days of individual tracks. So guides had an education track, dealers had an education track, manufacturers had an education track. And then some of that time during the day, we brought everyone back together into a single room and we talked about the big picture. So it's really a way for us to bring the industry together in a more, sort of intimate setting, to have these sort of larger conversations, as well as let them go and get educated by peers to really go back home and make better business decisions. And so it's really focused heavily on education. And we really kind of modeled it off of the dealer summits that we've done in the past that were specifically focused on dealers, but I wanted to expand it out to the entire industry. So think of it as an education conference of sorts, but with everybody instead of just one category. We brought the entire industry together, and it was much smaller. We had around 60 people total, but it was C-suite folks from companies. It was decision makers, and it was a good way to really understand better how we can serve the industry, and also how people could go back home, like I said, with that education to make better business decisions.
Right. That's it. Yeah. So basically, you guys take away a lot of important knowledge yourself, right? That's the idea.
Exactly.
How to do your job better, basically.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. Really moving forward is, AFFTA wants to make sure that we are serving the community appropriately. And we know that as times change, those needs change. And so we want to make sure that we're listening and that we have our finger on the pulse of the industry to make sure that we're continuing to do the right thing. We also are really trying to ramp up our communication with the industry, not only of what we're trying to accomplish and what we're doing on a day-to-day, but also, just things that are important for the industry to know. We want to be really that, kind of that place for people to find out that information through our newsletters. We're trying to start to add in like tips and tricks and things for businesses in every one of those newsletters, so that, again, there's just little nuggets of information that people can take away from our communications, as well as understand what their trade association is doing and making sure that we're providing the best value that we can for the membership and more importantly for the industry.
Nice. Well, let's take it out here. I always love to do the music podcast questions. So are you a big music fan? Do you listen to a lot of music, or do you listen to more podcasts?
Nope. Music is 100% the most important thing that I do if I'm listening to something.
Oh, good. So give us do you have a type of music, a group, a song, anything you want to leave us with here we can add to the show notes?
It's funny. I probably have one of the more eclectic, sort of music tastes. I can literally listen to anything. I found myself recently, because I had a trip to Puerto Rico last year, and so I started to learn Spanish. And so I've been listening to a lot of like reggaeton or, trap, kind of that, sort of popular Hispanic music, and so I've been listening to a lot of that lately. It's got a good beat, makes you tap your feet,
Yeah,
you know.
right.
So I've been enjoying a lot of that. I also, love classic rock, which unfortunately is now Metallica and the stuff that I grew up with.
Yeah.
But being in school in the 90s, I unfortunately hear a lot of Nirvana and other things on the classic rock station now. So
Oh, wow. So Nirvana is now classic rock.
I mean, hey, you're talking about close to 40 years ago, man, so it's
Right.
yeah, it's getting there. So yeah, and then I also at times, because I have an 11-year-old son, I find myself listening to popular music now too. So
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the 11-year-old. So he's got you. That's the thing. Eventually, they get their own tastes. Is that going on with your son?
oh yeah, 100%. He really likes Spanish music too. He's funny. He's a really bright kid. He can hear a song one time and kind of sing it, and so he's always singing. He doesn't know the words in Spanish, but he knows the sounds, and so he'll kind of mimic those things. So yeah, he's got me listening to Taylor Swift and all sorts of things.
Oh, sure. Yeah, Taylor Swift. Yeah, I have a daughter that's 11 as well, and she's not quite as into the music as much. But yeah, Taylor Swift keeps coming up, right, for the kids. I guess I should check it out and figure out, because my kids are probably going to be listening to her, right?
Yeah, at some point you may have to go to a concert.
Oh my gosh, right? That would be crazy. Okay. Nice. All right, Lucas. Well, we'll send everybody out to AFFTA.org, and that's just AFFTA.org. Is that the right place?
That is correct.
Awesome, Lucas. Well, thanks for your insight today. This has been definitely more than I was expecting. This has been awesome. I mean, what you guys have coming with the data, like we talked about, is going to be huge for a lot of people out here. So hopefully we'll meet you again here in person, and look forward to staying in touch with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much, Dave.
That is a wrap. You can grab all of the show notes at wetflyswing.com. And please follow us on Instagram and share this episode out with someone you love. Please send me an email, dave@wetflyswing.com, if you have any feedback or want us to put together an episode on this podcast for you. Check in anytime. I hope you enjoyed this podcast and would love to meet up with you on the water. We have new fly fishing schools going all year long and all around the country, so if you want to connect, let's do it right now. All right, time to get out of here. I hope you have a great evening. I hope you have a great morning or great afternoon wherever in the world you are, and I appreciate you for stopping by and checking out the show today. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to the Wet Fly Swing Fly Fishing Show. For notes and links from this episode, visit wetflyswing.com.